Hey there, and welcome everybody. Thank you for tuning in live this, what is today? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? I don't know. We just had a holiday weekend and I am all off schedule, but today I can assure you is one of my favorite days of the week. We are on a Google Live Hangout and we are joined by one of my new favorite people, Mr. Ryan Handley. Let's get the introduction out of the way first. How are you, my friend? How are you today, Ryan?
I am doing great, and I'm very happy to be here. Our little pre-call chat got me all jacked up for what we're ultimately going to share with everyone today.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, I want everybody to know that this is not going to be filled with fluff. We are going to get right into the nitty-gritty. The topic, of course, is how to tell your best story to attract the clients that are ready, willing, and able to work with you and to grow your business and ultimately win more clients. And I'm so excited to have Ryan on board with us. Like I said, I'm not going to spend too much of time going from the introduction, but a few things out of the way at first. It's really great to see a lot of familiar faces here. Thank you for spending your time with us right now. A lot of you do see that chat box. Please do continue to use that throughout the show and the event. I will get to a lot of your comments throughout, and we are going to get to not just theory, but we're going to speak about specifics. We're going to give real, live, tangible specifics and actions that you can take starting today to tell your best story, create your best content quite easily, you'll see, and make it all happen. So let me get a few of the specifics out of the way so you know who we're dealing with here. Of course, I said Ryan Handley, which he spends a lot of his time in a couple of significant places. One, on Google+. If you've been following me for any length of time, you know that we try to get as many of you over to Google Plus for very specific reasons. Ryan is currently followed by over 11,000 people, so I think he knows what he's talking about. He also has a Google Plus starter kit that he's giving away absolutely free on his website. You can check that out after the show and make good things happen for you there. He also has, and I'm going to congratulate you, Ryan, on this. I want you to tell us a brief thing about this. In September, I believe it is, you have your first book coming out, and I know, secured 25 hardcover copies for the record. So everybody listening, stay close through the weeks because I'm going to be giving out 25 of his books. So tell us a brief overview of what the book is.
Well, I appreciate you supporting the book and the project. It was actually crowdfunded, so in order for a couple different reasons, I used crowdfunding to kind of do like a pre-launch of the book, and the book is really distilled from one of the things you didn't mention is that I have a podcast, which I've been doing for more than 2 years now. Actually, July 3rd was my 2-year anniversary of doing the podcast, and interview-based show, and over 89 episodes. I really had a chance through all the conversations with some of the kind of top leaders in digital marketing and content creation and audience building, writing, distill a mindset as to how we are successful. Not tactics, tricks, and stuff like that, like gimmicky kind of things that come in and out of favor, but what are the core principles that if you can lay this foundation, you can put any tactic or strategy on top of it and find success. And that's Content Warfare, which is the book, how to find your audience, tell your story, and ultimately win the battle for attention online.
I love it. And I was reading through your About page before, and I actually printed out the big bold letters. Everybody listening, Ryan's About page, simply put, says, I help brands and businesses find their audience, tell their story, and win the battle for attention. Now, isn't that what it all comes down to? Isn't that really what we all want? And that's what you're here for today. You have a connection to Marcus Sheridan, which I know everybody watching, everybody following, we know, love, and admire Marcus. Ryan, what is your relationship and connection to Marcus?
I guess not to get all religious, but if Marcus was Jesus, I would be one of his disciples following him around through the No, I'm playing.
No, I think we're all there.
You're never supposed to bring religion up in business. But seriously though, about when I first got involved in content marketing, it was actually for my family's independent insurance agency, and we were doing a lot of things, and I was looking for like-minded people, and I came across Marcus about 6 months after he had started his own blog. And through, I don't know, countless conversations in the digital space, those turned into email conversations, which turned into phone conversations, and now I would consider him probably my closest mentor in doing this work, this audience building, content marketing work. We talk very regularly, and I appreciate him very much as a person, and I know that the advice that he gives is from the heart, and that's what I've always, why I kind of have always resonated towards him, and as you do, push people to his content, because I know it's coming from always from a place of good and of helping, and not that everyone doesn't do that to a certain extent, but I think that there are some people who have ulterior motives, and there's some people that really are just looking to help, and Marcus is definitely one of those people who are looking to help. So I try to model myself after him as much as I can.
You and me both, and I know everybody watching feels much of the same way. I want to point out something you made for everybody on board today. Ryan originally, and still to this day, is an insurance guy. Like I do with pet sitters, he does with insurance agents. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but isn't there a very similar outline, if you will, between the two? We're both nothing but small business, local service providers looking to gain the attention of our local audience, right?
Yeah, so much at their core, how you market the business, the stories you tell around the businesses are very, very similar. The product is obviously different. There may be a few different marketing problems that you have to solve. But for the most part, these main principles that we're going to talk about today and how you apply them, we're going to talk about some specific examples that I have firsthand in the insurance industry. And then as we discussed in our kind of pre-call, we are going to show everyone on the call today exactly how those transition into pet sitting, and then you're going to use your expertise to kind of fill in the gaps, and we're going to give everyone I don't want to kind of preclude, but we'll give everyone a push for the next show that's coming up in 2 weeks. But from today into the second show, you are going to have an action plan that you're going to be able to use, not just, hey, here's a few cool ideas, but some actual things that you can do to start telling your story in the digital space and start to attract the kind of clients that you want.
I love it. And what Ryan's talking about is today is part one of our series with Ryan. In 2 weeks, we're going to get back on a chat just like this, where you're all invited, obviously, for part two, where we're going to give you more specifics. And then 2 weeks following that is going to be parts 3 and 4, which are reserved for ticket holders and registrants of the 2014 Pet Sittingology live event in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, this October 19th through the 22nd. If you're not on board, head over to PetSittingLive.com for best pricing right now. So let's jump right into it. I know you have a little model for this whole storytelling business that includes what you call the 3 C's, and we're going to dissect each one of them, but it's company, client, and community. But first, Ryan, tell us, why is the concept of story so important to begin with?
So consumers don't buy from just anyone, right? And when you think about the clients that you have, I mean, they're pet sitting consumers. These are people who are looking for pet sitters, who have a need. They may not even know that they have a need. Those people, but people who have this need, whether they know it or not, right? And sure, you can take a message that says, I pet sit, here's my rates, here's the days that I'm available, here's my list of services, and shove that in front of them. And a few people will be interested in your, because they'll have a need, so they'll be interested in you and at least give you a call and give you a try. That's great. The problem is, and Josh, we've talked a lot about this, in our conversations, is that, there's these amateurs, or the nephew or the aunt, right? And
That's
they
right.
look at those people and they say, well, geez, they're free, or I can pay them $10, or a six-pack or something. You know what I mean? Who knows? But you pay them with, they're not getting a premium level fee for the premium level service that true pet sitting professionals give. So it's, how do you differentiate yourself? And I know this. The reason that I can talk from the heart on this topic is because this is exactly the same issue that I've faced in the insurance industry with my clients, with my own agency to begin with, and then with my clients now, is that people buy with their heart, right? That sounds very abstract, and everyone's going, oh my God, that's such an abstract concept. How do I harness that? Think about your own, like, why do you buy Nike over Adidas? You don't just walk into the store. You gravitate to one rack first. Maybe you give Nike a try first because you're really into Just Do It and you grew up with that brand and the messaging just kind of speaks to you somehow. You're not really sure what Adidas is about. So you go to the Nike and you give Nike every option, every chance for you to buy one of their shoes before you go to the Adidas rack, right? It's because Nike, over 20 plus years, 30 years, has told a story over and over and over again that you now attach to, whether you're conscious about it or unconscious. So what storytelling does, now I'm not telling you that you need to build a story the size that Nike did, though that would help you be successful. What I am saying is that the storytelling aspect of your business is just as important as the actual work you do, because the person who believes in the story, believes in why you stop every quarter mile with your little water tray, whether anyone does this or not, sticks the water down and gives them a drink because you believe that most dogs are dehydrated and people don't give their dogs enough water, and that's your belief. And that's what you believe in as a professional. The people who also believe in that story, because that's a piece of it, they're going to gravitate towards you. And when they talk about you, you're going to say, this woman who watches my dogs and my two dogs and takes them for a walk, she's got great services, all the service I need. But man, the thing I love about her is that she makes sure they're properly hydrated. There are days when I think my dog is dehydrated and it hasn't been an issue since, and she believes in that. That's the story. And the story is what people connect to, because if that same person just said, oh yeah, I have a dog, I have a pet sitter, and yeah, she takes him for a walk and she feeds him and she's fine.
Right. So let me break something down here before we get too far ahead of the game, because we're throwing around this word story, which is great, and I don't want people to get a little confused or even turned off by the word, because I want you to understand you already have all the stories in your head currently. It's not like from here forward you're going to have to go out and figure out what stories to tell. This session is going to put the stories in your head and get you to be able to translate them to the paper, to the website, to your marketing, because they already exist. You live and breathe as a human being, as an animal lover, and as a professional pet sitter and a business owner. By that very nature and that very definition, you already have everything in your head. So one of the purposes of joining us today is to have that light bulb moment go off and say, oh, that's what I have to do, and you'll be able to do it. So this isn't a course in storytelling per se, or even writing. It's a session on showing you how you already have this and the importance of doing what's already in your head that nobody else is doing. And like Ryan alluded to, it's not just about building your website and putting the handful of pages with facts, with these are my services, these are my business hours, these are my fees, this is my homepage, these are my pictures. Yes, those are important, but what we're talking about is the bigger picture, is to be able to connect emotionally with your audience. Why? Because like attracts like. We, as human beings, you do it, I do it, every person in your community does it, every one of your ideal clients do it. We naturally, consciously or subconsciously, will gravitate towards those. You might have heard those that we know, like, and trust, but it's also those that we get, those that we understand, those that we feel we are similar to, and that understand us. Does that sound about right, Ryan?
Yeah, and it's a perfect segue into what the 3 C's are. So So we're talking about storytelling at this higher level, right? And so as Laura made a great comment here. She said, excited to learn how to actually implement something. So Laura, I promise we're going to get there. And she made another comment, great comment on top of that, where she said, our story equals our ideal client story. And that's what the 3 C's are. The 3 C's break down this idea of storytelling into actionable components, boxes of content that are more real than this higher storytelling concept, right? Like some people, when you say storytelling, immediately go into like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings or some like epic fictional thing. No, here's what business storytelling looks like. It's the 3 C's. It's 3 components: your company, your clients, and your community. Right? So when you're thinking about what your story is, it is these 3. Think of them as concentric circles that overlap each other: your company, your clients, and your community. And that middle piece where all that content kind of connects to each other, that is your story. That's what makes your business who it is. So if you want, Josh, I'll start with company, and then we can drill into it a little deeper.
Absolutely. So as you get into it, let me ask you, Ryan, how do we break this down in our head as we're listening to you, as you're giving us case studies and specific examples? When I hear what you're going to tell us for the company, for the clients, and for the community, am I translating this to articles I'll be writing or blog posts I'll be publishing, that sort of a thing?
That's a really, really good question. Okay, so that's a great place to start. So this is really, no one piece of content is going to encompass your story. There isn't a page that you put on your, even if you have an About Us page on your site, that's not your story. That's just one little aspect of your story. That might just be a little bit about who you are and who your company is and the date that it started, right? So think of this as a really long-term thing. And it's a lot of different pieces of content, an Instagram image of you giving a hug to one of the dogs that you're sitting that day, and putting that out there and tagging the owner and saying, hey, Astro's having a great day today. We just played the ball game in the house and he had a great time and whatever. So it can be images, it can be videos, it can be blog posts, it can be posts on Facebook. Doesn't have to be long pieces of content. This can be just a picture that you just post a picture on Facebook. And as long as, when we get done, you understand how that image fits into one of the 3 C's and ultimately builds off your business story, then that's storytelling right there. That one piece of content is just adding into the story a little bit more. And it's ultimately the whole pie is what makes up the story that as Laura commented on, that your clients actually connect to, is all the Facebook posts, all the blog posts, all the videos. When they all kind of line up together, that's what makes your company who it is and the image that you're trying to portray. Never just one piece of content.
All right, right. So jump into the first C. What do you have for us?
So the first C is company. And what I mean by company is, who are you? Why are you in business, right? Why did you choose to become a pet sitter? Because it's not necessarily as common as, say, being an account executive at a regular business of some sort, some office space, right? It's a fairly unique business. You're working with people's pets, so there's a bit of intimacy and vulnerability there with your clients, because for many people, I know myself included, I have a Wheaten Terrier. Like, she is as much a child as my actual son Duke is. You know what I mean? Like, we talked about her as his sister. So there is this level of intimacy. So, and you're taking that on, which means that you have unique problems to deal with. So you chose to do this career. Why? Was it something in your past? Was it something you hope to be? Did you have a vision quest that told you, when you came out of the peyote tent, that you needed to be a pet sitter? Like, there's all these different reasons why you could have chosen, and people want to know those things, right?
Right. I love that peyote tent.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, many a good idea came out of that.
And I want to just, I just want to expand for a minute, because on the surface, when you're suggesting, hey, let us know why you became a pet sitter, sure, because I love pets, I love creatures, I love animals, I want to spend my time with them, sure, that is one valid route. But I challenge you to think further. We all came from a different industry, and we all reached a certain point that allowed us to say, you know what? Enough with all that. So really begin to think how you felt, what your day-to-day existence was like when you were not a pet sitter that had you dreaming of this. Go inside your core, your being, your motives, your wants, your desires, and get those on paper. What was so bad about sitting in that office? What were you missing out on? What were you sort of dreaming of doing bigger and sort of different than just being around pets all day? Because that is one obvious route, but try to go a little further on your journey in those stories. Carry on, Ryan.
Yeah, and it also, the company section of storytelling is also your day-to-day life. Like, what does your day-to-day work look like? How do you structure your time? Are you just a nighttime pet sitter? Are you weekends only? Are you mornings only? Are you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? If you need a pet sitter, I'll come and pick your pet up. It's breaking into all the little pieces, past, present, and future. So where do you want this company to go? You could put right on your page, my aspirations is to be the pet sitting provider in the state of New Jersey. I want to have pet sitting operations up and down the entire state, on the coast. I want them to be the places that people can go for the best quality pet sitting. And that is part of your company story, your dream, your goal. Because you know what people love doing? And I found this out a lot with the crowdfunding campaign for my book, was people love helping other people attain their goals. That's a big part of your story, is I'm trying to hire someone so I can provide even more attention to your animals when they're in my care. And that is one of my goals. And that aspiration, people will look past some of maybe your current inadequacies because they know that you're working towards this larger thing. And that all works into your story. So when you think about company, think about past, as Josh was just talking about, what did you come from? What brought you to this thing? What is your desires? It can't just be that you love animals, because every pet sitter loves animals. So that means it doesn't make you unique, and no one really cares about it. People probably assume that you love animals if you're a pet sitter.
Yeah,
that's an assumption. So to even have it so that is just the bar for being a pet sitter story. That's not a unique part of your story, right? In the insurance industry, we have a big joke. If you ask anyone in the insurance industry what differentiates them, they raise their hand and they say, we have great service. Every single one of them. I've done this in conference rooms with 100 people before, and every single great service. So that means great service does not matter because consumers assume it. So consumers assume that you love pets if you're a pet sitter. So think of all the other reasons why you became a pet sitter and really focus in on those, because those are what are going to change you. So past, present, future.
And let me just chime in for a second. And on that note, something that I've said, I'll give everybody tuning in today 10 points if you can give me something else other than I'll treat your pet like you'll treat your pet. Yes, fine, great. That's a good thing. But like Ryan's saying, isn't that the bare minimum? Shouldn't a pet owner expect that? Like, what else can we bring to the table? Well, of course you're going to treat my pet like I'm going to treat my pet. What else is there, though? Like Laura said here, good challenge, Josh. The kid next door loves pets. What makes us a premium? What makes us professional? What makes us different? Just getting your wheels spinning.
Yeah. And it's not always easy, and you may not have the answer today. This is another thing about storytelling that I want to touch on while we're right here and before we move on to the next C, is that you don't have to have the answer, and your story today may not be your story 3 years from now. This is something that to really be done right, you need to think about this as an ongoing developmental kind of thing. Because think about it, if it's always your past, your present, and your future is always going to be changing, your present's always going to be changing, and your past is always going to be changing as you experience new things. So you may decide that at some point your premium level thing is that you wear white gloves all day long and you never touch the dog with your hands, so they never get human oils on them, and that may not even be a good example, but whatever your thing is, that may not be your thing today, but just keep working on it and understanding that like Justin, that example of we treat your pets like your pets, that it doesn't differentiate you. It's what consumers assume. Your story is really about setting you apart, because truly, when you really think about your story, it's the one thing that makes you different is your story.
And we are talking about multiple pieces of the story puzzle, like Ryan said. It's not just a page on your website, like an about page that talks about your story and you're done. This is an ongoing thing that you are putting out there in various forms on Facebook, on Instagram, on any other social media site, on your blog, through videos on YouTube, which you can then embed on your blog, through photos and pictures you're taking of your clients and putting them on your blog and telling a little story about it. One thing I keep saying is, and I'm going to go back to this, you already have all of the stories in your head. Why? Because you live it day in and day out. So the minute you just become a little more aware and a little more conscious of what you're doing and how you're relating and how you're interacting with each pet, with each dog, with each cat, with each bird, with each snake, horse, hamster. There are stories in every single interaction, isn't there? Isn't there a story when you open the door, what that goofy dog, how they greet you? Tell that story. What happened? What went slightly off track that you had to quickly think on your feet and get on track? Tell that story.
Yeah, I love that example, by the way, of what went wrong. People assume, so consumers assume, this is actually, when we look into the psychology of why people buy, when people are looking at online reviews, if you have nothing but 5-star reviews, that's actually a negative for your business because people assume that it's been rigged, right? People assume that, or consumers assume that there's going to occasionally be a bad review or a bad experience, or that you're going to make a mistake. It's part of being human. So one of the pieces of content that works really, really well and a really good way to tell your story is problem solving, right? So this is actually tactical, and maybe we should have saved this for the next one, but we kind of hit on it, so I want to run it.
Go tactical.
So a really good piece of content is think about the things that go wrong during the day. Like every day, the St. Bernard steps on the water bowl, water goes everywhere, and I have to dry all the dog's feet. Not an epic problem, not anything that makes your business negative, but it's kind of a quirky, unique thing that most people probably don't know that you have to deal with every day. And then you take a hammer and nails and you nail the water dish down, and now the St. Bernard can't knock it over. That's an amazing story. Silly, a little trite maybe, but what it really does is say, hey, look, this isn't an easy job. And you need someone who's willing to deal with things, because if the water was all over the floor and the 12-year-old nephew doesn't take the time to clean up the water properly, now maybe you have water damage. But I make sure that anytime there's a mess, they clean it up. That's the moral of the story. The story is this funny St. Bernard who knocks the water dish over every day, and every day you're cleaning up all the foot marks all over the place and how you fixed it. Not that I would recommend hammering nails into your client's floor, but, the solution ends up being.
Right, Kristen, I just want to say, Kristen wrote something great and funny here. She wrote, I shared with one of my clients that I sing to her dog, and she laughed so hard. So if I'm looking for a pet sitter or a dog walker in my area, and I come across your site, and I see you talking about how you sing to the dog, what you sing. Maybe you have a whole song list. For dogs 12 pounds and under, I like to sing Christina Aguilera because I see that they respond to it. And then you have a whole playlist for different. I mean, wouldn't that be amazing? Would I hire you in under 5 seconds? Of course I would. I'd be like, honey, you have to see this. This woman is going to sing to our dogs and record it, talk about it, show pictures. I mean, you can go on so far with that.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. It's the quirks that make us different, and they don't have to be crazy quirks, just little things. It's that little stuff. So okay, right. So we beat company up a lot. That's the first C. We beat company up a lot. So let's talk about clients, and we touched on this in a couple examples a little bit, but client is the second C, And by client, what I mean is start to get into who your clients are. So as Josh said when he was describing storytelling, he did an amazing job, much better than I did. He said that people want to do business with people who are like them. It's not a discriminatory thing. It's human nature. Someone relates to, they have the same value structure. You tend to gravitate towards them. So when you tell stories about your clients, it doesn't necessarily have to mean specific people. It doesn't have to, it can be if the people are willing to allow you to talk about them, which is better. But it can just be generalities, as long as they're true. But what these stories say is, people like this do business with me for these reasons, and this is who I enjoy working with. Now, anyone else who can relate to that person says, wow, that's the pet sitter for me, because I have a very similar issue. I have a kid who has asthma, and we need to keep the dander down, and this other stuff. And this pet sitter really gets me, because I see that she has 5 different testimonials from clients who have kids with asthma, and she's showing how she keeps the house clean and the dander down, all this different stuff. I need to work with that pet sitter. So now you're not talking about yourself. You're talking about the people that you do business with. What do they look like? How do they act? Where do they live? What's important to them? Is it important to them that their dog runs? Is it important that I don't know what's important to birds, right. But you know what I'm saying? When you start to highlight who your clients are, now people can say, okay, I feel comfortable with this person. So the first C, company, I feel comfortable with them. They seem legit. I like their stories. I like their quirks. It makes sense to me. Now you're telling about the client, and they're going, okay, these people look kind of like me. They're from my similar area. Actually, that woman there, she's in my church. This woman over here, I see her at the bank sometimes. Okay, so these are people who are like me, who have similar interests, similar needs, and they're being served by this pet sitter. Now I'm starting to feel very comfortable with them as my service provider.
Absolutely. And let me break a little bit of that down for everybody. If you have on your website none of this, and you just have the bare facts of your services listed and your fee structure and your holiday schedule and maybe some pictures, but you're not really going into this. Why are we doing this? Because whether you realize it or not, accept it or not, you, me, all of your potential clients, everybody in your community, everybody in the world, we are attracted to people that we can relate to, that we can wrap our heads around, that we get, that we have found a similar commonality, a bond with. Here's a little, here's a little example. Think about the Facebook groups that you spend time in. Why do you choose to spend time in those specific Facebook groups? Because you relate to them. You find a common interest, a common bond, a common similarity there. Why do you watch the television shows that you watch and not the other ones? Why don't you watch Dancing with the Stars? Well, I don't, because I don't really relate to dance. I can't dance to save my life, so I'm just not going to understand or appreciate dance. But show me a stand-up comedy show like Last Comic Standing or any sort of half-hour gig. I'm going to love that because I understand it. I can relate to it. I get it. It speaks to me. So I'm going to spend my time there. I'm going to be drawn to that. So the reason you're doing all of this is to put out there, this is who I am, like Ryan said perfectly. These are the people who do business with me. And if somebody sees themselves in you and in these other people, they're going to say, I want to belong to this group. I want to watch this show. I want to be part of this Facebook group. I want to spend time here, and that all translates to them hiring you.
Yeah. And Yolanda actually in the comments said it perfectly. She said, who we like to work with. And that's a big piece of this, right? So what your story is really doing. So think about all the calls you get from people who are just kicking the tires, or from people who do working with them. Hopefully you've never had that. I know as an insurance agent, I've had plenty of that. But you get this client in and you're like, okay, great, a new client. And then it doesn't fit their, they wanted X and you're like, but I provide Y. And I don't get why you don't understand that I provide Y. I don't provide X. The issue is you're not telling your story properly. And I don't mean to direct this at everyone listening. This is larger than just on this call. If you're not telling your story properly or you're not telling it at all, then people are going to take whatever assumptions they have about your particular industry, and they're just going to throw them on you as a service provider. They're going to look at you as a commodity. They're going to transactionalize your work, and they're going to place all their assumptions on you. So I assume that pet sitters do X. I saw some show with Cesar or whatever, and he said this, and so I'm assuming that every pet sitter does that same thing, and bam, you have to do this. And you're looking back going, wait a minute, that's not who I am and what my business is about. And how would they know that if your story isn't out there, right? So what you can do, what storytelling is doing is narrowing the filter to the people who are the perfect fit clients. Growth hackers call this product market fit. Your product matched to the perfect market for that product. So your type of pet sitters, I work in houses that have animals and kids with asthma. I don't even know if that's a real thing, but let's say it is. That's my specialty. I travel within 75 miles of my home, and I will come and do whatever. That you only want people with kids with asthma. If they don't have that problem, they're not going to understand your service or your product price, and it's going to be an awful fit. So that's what telling your story does.
I love it. And a very strong word Ryan used was commodity. We are not a commodity. Commodity is something that could be bought and sold for a very specific agreed upon price in the marketplace. So we are not a commodity because we don't want to offer pet services for $10 a visit, right? Our value is worth a little more in order to do the professional job. So what Ryan's saying is, if you're getting calls and people are saying, oh, but my neighbor will watch it for $10, there's a disconnect there, because if you were to effectively and over time, slowly but surely, get your story out there and put it out there and allow the right people to consume it, to read it, to enjoy it, to understand it, then they're not going to call you and want or expect a $10 visit, because it's way beyond that. They want someone who's going to sing to their dog or whatever, all of your stories, or want someone who said, forget the 9 to 5. I'm sick of being told what to do. I know my worth is a little more. I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to make it happen, and I'm going to work for myself. And these are the roadblocks and the pitfalls and the struggles that I have to overcome and the challenges I have to face, but I'm going to do it. Now, when one of your potential clients sees themselves in you, they're going to be like, I love this person. I love her passion. I love her strength. I love her motivation. I'm going to hire her. So it all works together.
Yeah, 100%. I think that this is one of the key components, is perfect market or product market fit, which is a concept that was originated out of kind of this growth hacking movement, which we don't have to get into. But essentially, just only working with the people who really want to work with you, right? And so that allows us to perfectly to the third C, which is community. So pulling this whole thing together, we've told people about who we are, who our company is, why we're in business. They've become enamored into that. They then saw who our clients are and got a feel for what type of people really succeed working with your business, and they see themselves in those people. So they starting to trust you. Now they're starting to trust you more because they're like, okay, people like me, do business with me. Now when we get to the community piece is where the whole thing comes together. So what community is and actually I have to work, this is the hardest bucket for insurance agents, which you would think would be the easiest, but it's the hardest, and I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to explain how that relates to pet sitting. Is for insurance agents, there is this perception of them that they are not one of us, right? The everyday person doesn't know anything about insurance. I didn't until I worked in insurance. I mean, you know you need it, and you understand maybe the basics, but not the whole breadth of this thing. And the insurance agents tend to be more closed off and just, they're not one of us. What that does is it creates a barrier to the transaction, because I feel like there's no layer of comfort between the two people. You may be enamored by their story. You may see clients that are similar, but you're like, they kind of sit in this building and I don't see them out in the community, and I just get a weird feel from them. So what the community aspect of storytelling does is say, I am part of you. You being the community, you being the consumers who are interested in my product. I'm just like you. I go to the same festival every Saturday. I go to the farmer's market. My kids go to the same school as you. Part of my thing is I wave to my son every day as I'm walking the 5 dogs that I pet sit by the school because I live in close proximity. I mean, these are the little things talking about the nuances of the community that the person goes, wow. So think about this. Think about what this story, this 3 concentric circle story has done for a consumer. I needed a pet sitter. I typed in, I live in Albany, New York. Albany pet sitting. That's what I type that in. Okay, so I have 5 providers. I click on the first provider and it's like, I watch pets, here's my hours, maybe they have rate on there, maybe not, and here's the number you need to call. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I give them a call. Number 2 says, brought 3 of my dogs who I was watching for the weekend because their families were out of town, to the local farmer's market, and it was tons of fun, and they got to smell all these things. And my clients really trust that I'm able to take them into a public place, and they love the fact that we have that trust. And I love farmers markets because it really speaks to who I am as a person. Now you've related as a person, you've related who your clients are, and you've related the fact that you're a community member. Who am I going to choose? Done. These clients allow this woman to walk their dogs through a public farmer's market, and she's into the local community. And I have a love for natural local honey, and she's at farmer's markets. Done. I don't even, how much, what she charges doesn't even matter. I'm going to call and say, I want you because you're the person that I relate to. And that's what the storytelling does for a business.
Just to focus on some of the comments that have been wonderfully coming in here. Thank you, everybody participating live right here today. Rita wrote, my ideal client is one who sees their cat as a member of the family. She then went on to say she realizes her website doesn't really say that. But the fact that your ideal client is somebody who sees the cat as a member of the family, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, that's fantastic, that's great. But now she should, in different ways, tell stories on what she has witnessed her clients doing that show and suggest the cat as one of the family, right?
Yeah, because here's one thing about that example, and Rita, I completely get it. So this isn't a knock on you at all. It's just that a lot of people will say, I see my cat as part of the family. That what you should drill into your stories is finding out the people who really believe that, because those are going to be the kind of customers you want to work with, right? So if I had a cat, I don't. If you asked me, I probably would say, yeah, we see the cat as part of the family, but I don't know if I would or wouldn't say that I see the cat as much a part of the family dog. I don't know that. But so what the stories that Josh was talking about will allow you to do is really drill into, how do you know if the cat is part of your family? Like, you could do a top 10 list. 11 ways you know your cat is more important than your child. That's an amazing piece of content, amazing piece of storytelling, because it allows you to, 1, show your expertise, it allows you to be kind of humorous, and 2, find the people who actually see their cat as more important than their child, and subsequently a perfect client for you.
And let me just say something right there. What Ryan did was give us a very, very strong, powerful, and specific headline, right? When you hear that headline and picture seeing that on Facebook or in a Google search, that it says, my cat is more important to me than my child. Are you going to click on that? Probably. Now, there's obviously a lot of tongue-in-cheek in that title, so you might want to preface it with something that suggests, okay, we know that no pet might overtake your love for your own child. However, so you're allowed to be a little tongue-in-cheek with the title, and then get your point across. Is that right, Ryan?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the whole thing. The ultimate goal of telling these stories is to capture leads. Make the phone ring, have someone fill out a contact form. You know, if they're subscribing to the mantras that I know that you teach through the conversations, you know, maybe they have a book or a white paper or something they're giving away in exchange for their email address. I mean, basically, these stories are not just to tell them, they're to grow your business. I mean, that's really what you're coming to. So the bottom line is always, and this is why you should pick up the phone and call me. Like, if you made it through all 11 and you check next yes to all of them, then you should pick up the phone and call me because I'm the perfect pet sitter for you. So there always has to be that CTA at the bottom of the story that then captures the people who do relate to it.
Right. CTA, of course, is call to action. At the bottom, no, it's all good. At the bottom of every piece of content, make sure you do have that call to action that lets them know what to do next. There is a fantastic dialogue going on right now in the chat room, chat boxes. I love it. Keep it up. I want to just break down something Yolanda said. She wrote a nice little paragraph here that talks about, she says, people that we like to work with, and then she lists clients that absolutely love their pets and demand the best care. Do you want your pet sang to? We do. Do you wish that other people would understand, etc.? Now, Ryan, she should, while she could have that on a page on her website, because we reiterated earlier on that this is a ongoing long-term process. It's not just get your story packaged, bundled up and written and throw it on your page. So she should be able to write something like that and then over time break out each one of those points to be an additional story on your blog, on Facebook, right?
Yeah, actually what all those things sound like are really good buckets for content. So maybe take each one of those points, put them on the top of a piece of paper, and start to write down underneath them potential pieces of content that tell that story. So, you know, give me one of those examples again. And now that I started talking, I forgot one.
No, it's all right. She wrote, people that we like to work with, clients that absolutely love their pets. Do you want your pet sang to? We do.
Okay, so let's start there, the singing. So just make that a topic at the top of the page, and then underneath that, think of all the ways that you can display the fact that you sing to your pets. So, or sing to the pets that you watch. So images. Man, it would be really cool to have my spouse or my friend come over while I'm sitting with the pets and have all the pets around me and me singing to them like Kumbaya at the campfire style, right? Like, you know, because that's what happens. I start singing and they all kind of sit down and lay around the living room and that's what happens. And get a picture of that. Okay, picture would be good. Okay, I'm going to write a blog post about that. Then, you know, a video would be really cool of me singing and the dogs start barking at this one point in the song all the time that I sing. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I capture that in video. And not that has to be done day one, but just know, okay, so here's like 5 or 6 really good pieces of content that over time I'm going to create and make sure that I share. And then for each one of those topics, do the same thing. Just brainstorm on all the ways that you could potentially get that part of the story out. And now what you end up having, here's what you end up having when you finish this little exercise, is a sheet full of content. So how many people on this call have said to them, I'm not sure what I should write about, right? I'm not sure what I should post on Facebook about. Mm-hmm. We've all had that moment. What this sheet does is guarantee that at least for a long time, you never have that thought again. Because you look at what you've done that week and you're like, oh, I need something to share this week on my blog. Okay, I'm going to have my spouse or my friend or my kid or whatever videotape me singing to the animals this week, and we're going to get that out. Okay. Now exactly. You know, and less effort is going into coming up with ideas.
Exactly. It's great to see, like I keep saying, a lot of familiar faces here. Mike gives a great example. By the way, Mike, I did read your lead generation PDF, and it's fantastic. Separate conversation. And I'm referencing that because what he says was actually mentioned in that PDF. For everybody listening, he says, great example of being one of us is BarkBox, BarkBox.com. We all know the service they provide. You get the monthly deal to your door for your animal, for your dog or cat, believe it or not. There's a cat one as well. But he wrote, sign up for their newsletter. You don't specifically have to purchase their item if you don't want to at this point. He says sign up for their newsletter, and you'll see that there's a lot of funny, no-salesy content. So thanks for the great example there. Also, Kristen told she mentions that she told a great story on Facebook, which is what I said. She already had this story in her head because it happened, and she knew, okay, I should probably tell this story. A Yorkie had an incident, and she posted it on Facebook, got the attention of the owner, etc., and she wrote, after I posted this, I received 3 messages asking me about my services. That's the real-life example in success right there.
Yeah, and actually Laura has a great example in here too. Definitely highlight how you solve problems and handle emergencies. I had a horse emergency, and the vet asked me for my business card at the end of the ordeal, and the horse recovered. You know, that right there, how, you know, you don't have to talk about the specific horse, you can keep people out of it, or the specific vet, but just by, you know, I got a phone call. It was 9 p.m. at night. This had happened to the horse. This is how I solved it. You know, and just the fact, you know, all these little pieces of the story, because what does that say? I'm on call. I'm willing to help in a pinch. I'll drive to where you are. I mean, think of all these things that could be listed as services, right? You could just have a page that says, I'm on call 24 hours a day. I'm this, I'm that. But telling the story, people are pulling all those nuggets out in a way that seems more real to them. A list, anyone can make a list, but a story, people are like, wow, look at all those things just out of the first sentence. I got a call at 9 p.m. I jumped in my car and I drove 50 miles, right? That's the first sentence of your story before you even get into what happened to the horse, and you've now just told that person how willing you are to help them if they're one of your clients. So we've beat storytelling up a lot so far, but
right, but that's the deal. And I just want to say one thing about that as well. I wrote an article literally 5 years ago, and I think it's still relevant today. The idea and the concept was simply, you only have to be a little bit better than the rest in this industry to get noticed, right? Because the bar for the vast majority, as we know, unfortunately, is low. So if you put in this amount of work, you will succeed beyond something you'll ever imagine. Yes, this stuff isn't going to write itself. So you have to put in a little bit of work, but hopefully you're finding the excitement and the aha through all this to say, you know what? This does work. This is going to work. I'm going to do this because not everybody else is doing this. The time is now. So the more you do this and the more you wow your visitors, you're not going to have to fight for the knowledge of becoming hitting everybody over the head where I'm a premium service. I'm sick of having to compare to the neighbor and the non-professional, because your stuff will speak for itself. Finally, I just want to remind everybody, because this is a fantastic dialogue. Thank you, Ryan, for continuing to spend the time with us. I want to remind everybody, in 2 weeks from today, come back here. You'll get links to register and join us again. Me and Ryan and you guys are going to be here again. We're going to take this conversation even further. So within the 2 weeks, I'll make sure that we're all getting our ducks in a row, so to speak, and we are going to hop back on a call for part 2, and we're going to take this even further. And parts 3 and 4, we're going to get your stories and it is reserved for ticket holders to the conference. So make sure you're on board, PetSittingLive.com. But for next time in part 2, you're all welcome, and we're going to dive deeper into this. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah. No, I will say that next 2 weeks, next episode is going to be very tactile. So we did talk some tactics here, and there was this really great dialogue going on about SEO and stuff, and how the next show is going to be about delivering the message, right? So we've talked about what the story is. You know, there's been examples in the chat. We've talked about examples of what actual pieces of content are and the stories that we can tell and how powerful. In 2 weeks, we're going to talk about how you deliver those stories. So video, YouTube versus, you know, private hosting, blog, Facebook, all the different ways we're going to drill into how you deliver that message. And I'm actually really looking forward to episodes 3 and 4 of this, because we're going to take your examples and you said we're going to talk about specific companies, but this is going to be really fun. People who are willing to put themselves out there, we are going to dive into actual pet sitting businesses and pull out, here are the things you're doing great, here are some places you can improve, and give people like a 1-hour live coaching session on their site, and it's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to doing that. So I really appreciate you having me on. The comments in the chat have been amazing. Thanks everyone for coming. It's been a ton of fun, and I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we're wrapping it up. I will keep an eye on this to see if there's any specific questions we want to tackle. But at the very least, let us keep this dialogue going. Most of you, many of you, know that I have that private Facebook group, the Pet Sittingology Training Center. Let's at least keep it there. If you are not inside and you're not a member, come over to facebook.com/PetSittingology, the fan page. Let me know you were on this webinar, and I'll get you into the training center so you can specifically keep this dialogue going. So that's where we'll have it specifically for the next 2 weeks. Please get in touch with Ryan. Ryan, where's the best place we can find you? I know RyanHanley.com is your hub. You can find, I'm telling you guys, you want to listen to a podcast. This guy has the master of all masters week after week. He has one of the top podcasts on iTunes. Subscribe to his newsletter. Go over to Google Plus and find him. I answered my own question where they can find you. What do you want to add to that, Ryan? Please do.
No, this week, actually Thursday, I record the podcast as a live Google Hangout like this, just not in Webinar Jam. And this week we have Mark Schaefer from Businesses Grow, who is an incredibly interesting dude. Like top 25, like Inc.'s top 25 social media influencers, like very, very smart. And I'm actually a little like fanboyish to chat with him. So if you do want a taste of that, this week is a good one to take a listen to.
Absolutely, and if you don't mind, Ryan, at least for the next handful of weeks while we're doing this, if you don't mind, can I invite you into our Facebook group so you can check in when you get a chance, say hello? Yeah.
Love to. Yeah. And anyone, if anybody has any questions offline, Ryan@RyanHanley.com. Feel free to email me, or Google Plus is a great place to connect with me because I'm, very accessible in that space. So if you have any direct questions that you just don't want to put on the chat, or it comes to you later on, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help however I can.
All right, and as we're wrapping it up, if you guys want to say a quick comment, let us know if you have any last thoughts, if this was helpful, if there's anything specific. While we're waiting for those to trickle in, remember the Pet Sittingology Training Center on our Facebook group. Let's keep the dialogue going there. Friend us on facebook.com/PetSittingology for the public fan page. Look for a separate email to sign up in 2 weeks for part 2 of this, where we will get into the nitty-gritty. With that, Ryan, any last words?
No, everybody, I just, content marketing, storytelling, it works every single time. It's just work. That's the only thing.
I know, it's true, and the work is already here. You just have to learn to put it down on paper or your keyboard. Kelly asked if I can give the link to the training center on Facebook again. I unfortunately can't, because it's one of those silly little long strings. If you search Pet Sittingology Training Center in on Facebook, request, I'll let you in, and or Facebook.com on the Pet Sittingology fan page. Just say, hey, Josh, I was there. Can you give me a direct link? And that'll be a little easier. I can give you the link. Thank you, everybody, for your amazing comments. I am pumped. I love these. Look for this again in 2 weeks. However, next week we do have another Google Plus wonderful man, Ronnie Bincer, who I know you know very well. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, and then secret, I don't know if I told anybody, but in late August, we actually just secured Mike Alton, who's going to be doing one of these with us. Yeah.
Very good. Very
good people. Social media and blog people. All right, so thanks, long guys. We're going to keep the dialogue going. We'll do it again next time. I love these. Thanks for joining us. Take care, guys. Thanks, Ryan.